Playing a fighting game is a lot of fun, but do you ever feel like you're missing something? I'm sorry to say, but you totally are. Look at the stage you're playing on. Why fight in those boring old places when you could be fighting in the presence of the fetus of God? This is a stage from Darkstalkers, a game people pretend they've played so they can draw pictures of Morgan and Lilith on the internet. Anyway, the fetus of God is one of those fighting game stages that sticks in your head, and I don't really know why. Maybe it's the colors. Another stage from Darkstalkers that stuck with me is this one. There's this thing that flails around violently in the background. Given how the rest of the stage looks, one can only imagine what grotesque horrors lie on. It's this cool dog. Stages in fighting games aren't the most important aspect, but whenever I think about my favorite fighting game, the stages are one of the first things to pop into my head. So why not look at some fighting game stages and try to find out why? Nope, just kidding. This video is just an excuse to talk about fighting game stages. Many fighting game stages take place all over the world, thanks to Street Fighter popularizing the World Tournament trope. I feel the series that does this trope the best is the King of Fighters. With 15 mainline games, they've had the opportunity to visit a variety of locales from all around the world. One I've always been fond of is the Spain stage from the King of Fighters 98. This is based off of the Court of Lions in Grenada. It's practically a one-to-one replica. Not a place you'd think would make a good fighting game stage, but it does. I took an architecture class once, and this place came up during one of the lectures, and I was like, I know that place. This is where Yashihiro fought Brian Battler. The Japan stage from the same game is another iconic stage in the SNK community, but it happens to be one of the most lazy stages in fighting game history. That's because this stage is located right outside of SNK's headquarters, well, at the time. It's literally down the street from the offices. Yeah, that crosswalk down the street, put it in the video game. We're short on time and we need to make 10 more of these. Despite the yearly release schedule, SNK continued to make stages with some of the best sprite work in the business. KOF 99 has one of the best with its park stage. The lush green grass moving in the wind transitions to a dark stormy sky, ending with the stage in a downpour of rain. All this for the 99th KOF game. You gotta respect the artist's dedication. I could pick any KOF game and you'd have at least 3 amazing stages, but if I did, this would turn into the King of Fighters stage appreciation video, and no one wants to see that. So from this point forward, there will be no more KOF or SNK content whatsoever in this video. Our next stage is arguably the best fighting game stage of all time, and it's from everyone's favorite murder simulator, Mortal Kombat. I'm of course talking about The Pit, an all-time classic. Win the match, land an uppercut, and send your helpless opponent hurtling towards their spiky doom. Such a simple idea, but no matter how many times I see it, I never grow tired of it. This stage invented the stage fatality, a feature I always felt the developers didn't really know what to do with. In Mortal Kombat 2, we had some good ones like the Deadpool and the spiked ceiling, along with the return of the pit, this time in 3 dimensions. Mortal Kombat 3 had the subway, the pit again, but less cool, the pit, but in a tower, and Acid Bath 2.0 Lava Edition. Speaking of Mortal Kombat 3, I believe this is the first fighting game to introduce stage transitions. An interesting idea that's held back by Mortal Kombat 3's stage design. 1 minute you're fighting in this cool chamber with like a soul portal, you knock the guy up and then you're just in some room. Mortal Kombat 3 is set in an Earthrealm city very similar to Chicago, an oddly mundane place to bring your fighting game after fighting on mysterious islands and mystical realms. But when it comes to the stages in the Mortal Kombat franchise, it hit its peak in the 3D era with Deadly Alliance, Deception, and Armageddon. Almost every stage in this trilogy is amazing. Here are some of my favorites. I can think of no better place to get my neck snapped than Deadly Alliance's Wu-Shi Academy. The statues towering over the arena, holding up the stage, are a striking visual and turn what would be your run-of-the-mill stage into something special. Anyone who's played these games remembers falling cliffs. It might not be the most fair stage out there, but that's balanced out by the joy of flinging your opponent off the stage in record time or falling off like a complete idiot. Sky Temple is another stage with a big fall. The stage really nails the scale of fighting on top of a giant tower, making the stage fatality all the more effective. Yin Yang Island is one of the most unique stages I've seen in a fighting game. 1 minute, you're having a peaceful fight to the death on the beach, and the next, it transforms into the complete opposite. I've always loved how the palm trees transform into snakes. When you go back to the beach, you can never look at those trees the same way. The cherry on top is being able to knock your opponent into the water, turning them into fish food. If those stages didn't have enough fatalities for you, Armageddon's Battle Arena has you covered. Each corner is occupied by some death trap just waiting to be triggered. One of the best gladiator arena stages in fighting games, that's for sure. You can't deny that the 3D era Mortal Kombat stages were on another level of creativity. At the turn of the millennium, 2D fighting games weren't doing amazing. 3D fighting games like Tekken, Virtua Fighter, and Dead or Alive were stealing the spotlight with their cutting-edge, super realistic, almost lifelike polygonal graphics. Some 2D fighters tried to adapt by going 3D, but they also started adding 3D elements to their 2D games, likely because of the negative stigma sprites had at the time. I can see it now. Our fighting game might look 2D, but can't you see the giant clown head we put here for you? The two games that come to mind when I think about this style are Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and Capcom vs. SNK 2. Specifically, the giant clown face and the beer-drinking robot cowboy. I'm also partial to the Kinder Dyke stage with the windmills. On one hand, the 3D backgrounds heavily contrast with the 2D sprites. It looks unnatural, it feels like the characters and the world they're fighting in are two separate entities. It's even a little creepy in Capcom vs. SNK 1's case. Some of their stages have sprites of real people in the background. It's almost like our fighters are stuck in some Matrix-like world that's trying its best to replicate our reality but is limited by the technology of a Sega Dreamcast. Despite that, I can't help but love this style because of those reasons. The mixing of 2D and 3D creates a bizarre blend you can only find in this era of gaming. This was a pretty short-lived fad, and even then games like Third Strike and Mark of the Wolves opted to stick with the classic 2D sprite backgrounds, and I can't blame them. They've definitely aged a lot better. Although, SNK would go crazy adding 3D backgrounds into almost every one of their fighting game ports at the time. Sometimes they'd be one-to-one replicas or a slight adaptation, or they'd just make an entirely new stage. In rare cases, the background would cause performance problems like this stage from Neo Geo Battle Coliseum. Yeah, I didn't want to have an enjoyable experience playing your game. I really needed to see that giant machine destroy the background. A stage we all accept as normal, but is strange when you think about it, is the training stage. The training stage is the stage of all time. Grids and lines on a white background. It's quite literally a test map made playable. This stage got famous thanks to Street Fighter 4, or should I say, infamous. Back in the day, you couldn't watch a tournament for 5 minutes without seeing this stage. I distinctly remember spectators trashing on this stage, calling it boring. The crazy thing is, Capcom agreed and banned it from tournament play for a time. As time passed, the training stage became more of an accepted thing, and I really don't think people mind it these days. Other fighters have tried to spice things up by adding some visual flair. Cross Tekken made the training stage blue, Under Night went green, Street Fighter V added a dark mode. Honestly, it's a straight upgrade. The King of Fighters 14 had this sign you could put custom text in, a very dangerous feature. In all seriousness, the training stage is an oddity because you don't see something like this in other games, yet it remains a staple of the genre. Some fighters opt to not have a training stage, but an in-game equivalent. City of the Wolves has the Warehouse stage, Grand Blue Fantasy has the Arena, and Tekken 7 has Infinite Azure. These stages serve the same purpose of the training stage, a visually simple stage to fight on that isn't just a video game test map. Honestly, I like this approach better, but I wouldn't mind having a stage like this and a training stage. 3D fighting games have always had interesting stages. Since they're not locked to the 2D access, you can have more varied layouts. Tekken 4 has always stood out in my mind because their stages aren't built like regular fighting game stages. They're more realistic with their layouts. Fighting on a big tarmac, the middle of the mall, or the streets of Shinjuku just feels like a natural evolution of the infinite stages they had up until that point. Unfortunately, if you know anything about Tekken 4, these types of stages didn't stick. So with Tekken 5, they went back on the idea. This didn't stop them from making great stages. The Penguin stage from 5 might be the best infinite stage they've made. That is, if this wasn't the game that also had Moonlit Wilderness. This stage is the embodiment of a place you go for a dramatic fight. Tekken 6's Fallen Colony is another personal favorite of mine. I have no idea why this stage is in Tekken 6, it looks like it was ripped right out of a JRPG. The jets soaring overhead and the destroyed colony all around makes this a memorable stage. Oh, and the snow stage for this game has snow physics. This is lost technology, we can't do this anymore. Tekken Tag 2 has the best stage roster in the series. There's just so much variety. There's a little something for everyone in this game. Even Snoop Dogg has his own stage, which could make it the first fighting game stage to feature a celebrity. If you ever wanted to live out your fantasy of having a fist fight in traffic, Tekken cannot help you. But Dead or Alive certainly can. Dead or Alive stages can range from standard arenas to stages with some really unique layouts and hazards. Ooh, the shoulder bash into the cactus? That's gotta hurt. Some stages are huge and have 2 to 3 layers to them. You could get lost in these stages. Don't get me started on the crazy falls. Some are small drops or a tumble down a staircase, but others have you and your opponent fall from some ridiculous heights and miraculously get back up like nothing happened. I don't care what the life bar says, you're not getting up from that one. Moral of the story, don't fight in the middle of the street. Fighter. Street Fighter V is a game that has a ton of DLC stages, probably the most out of any fighting game. It's no secret that SF5 was extremely underwhelming on release, which led to Capcom putting in a lot of legwork to improve the game by adding characters, costumes, and stages. If you want to sell mucho DLC, why not bank on nostalgia? They brought back some of Street Fighter's most iconic stages. Some transitioned to the SF5 style well, while others, not so much. Sometimes you just can't beat immaculate sprite work. A beach stage never hurt anyone, but funnily enough, this one is banned because the water can hide certain gameplay elements. There are also some cameos from characters who will never be playable in another fighting game ever again, like Necro in the first Halloween stage. They really liked doing seasonal stages for Halloween and Christmas. I can't lie, playing on these stages during those times of year was pretty comfy. At one point they added a customizable dojo stage in a free update. This was tied to the game's dojo mechanic. They're basically clans and you could get various pieces of furniture and knickknacks to decorate your dojo. I never messed with it, but I really like the idea and wouldn't mind seeing it come back. If we're talking about Street Fighter V stages, we cannot forget the Capcom Cup stages. These stages are part of the Capcom Cup bundles, a DLC bundle that would go towards supporting the competitive scene. These stages weren't just for show, as they'd play on them during sponsored tournaments and, more importantly, the Capcom Cup, making it feel all the more special. A cool way to give players content while also supporting the pro scene. Guilty Gear Xrd is one of the best looking fighting games out there, and it remains a technical marvel that Arc System Works continues to build off of. When Revelator, its revision, came out, they updated the game's graphics and remade all of the stages. Some got simple lighting changes, while others got drastic overhauls. Slayer's Mansion is a good example. In Sign, it takes place at night and is full of color and lively. The perfect stage to fight on in October. In Revelator, they switched up the time of day and flipped the color palette, changing the vibe completely. The Skywalk went from a nice overcast day to an emerald green soaked night. The train stage had its time of day swapped like Slayer's, and so did the castle grounds. Some stages are changed for story reasons. Since Ramlethal is defeated in Soul's arcade mode, this stage is a lot more chill in Revelator. If you ever wondered what this crater here is supposed to be, it's what remains of Japan. Justice blew it up because she felt like it. With such drastic changes between the two versions, Xrd and Revelator have their own visual identity, and while I might not agree with all of the changes, I can't deny that Revelators do look technically better. But I do wish we could play on the OG stages, like how you can pick the objectively better Elfelt costume. Fighting game stages are cool. Fighting games are cool, and I hope you enjoyed this grand tour of fighting game stages and their many types. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.